Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection with Dr. Sharon Gorman out in Georgia, I believe. Dr. Sharon, can you kind of just get us started by introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about reflecting back on what your background was before you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor?
Oh, I think I decided when I was about 12. So my background was school. I had an uncle that was a chiropractor, and I was one of those miracle cases, which very often happened back in the day, so to speak. I had a high fever. I had encephalitis. I was in the hospital. They didn't know. I think I had mumps encephalitis. They didn't know what was wrong with me, but this fever wouldn't break. So,
Mm.
long story short, my uncle was a chiropractor. He had listened to Sid Williams and thought that with the right adjustment, you can grow hair on a cue ball. So he came to the hospital in the middle of the night, and I got my first adjustment in the hospital. And of course my fever went up, but by the next morning it was gone. So
Mm.
I think that my life is about paying it forward, because I don't think I would be alive without chiropractic. I had already been in the hospital for a few weeks, and had spinal taps, had every test, but
Mm.
my atlas was out, obviously. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember making the decision. And I actually went down to Life University. My brother was a student at the time, to visit him. I was about to go to Fairleigh Dickinson University. I graduated, actually, Drew University in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And I was accepted, ready to go. And I went to visit him. He was down at Life, and I never wanted to come home. So
Mm.
I
Mm.
went to Kennesaw, which was the closest university, got my undergrad, and went right into chiropractic. And
Mm.
I graduated from Life. I was only 22 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the greatest gifts of my life, that I knew so early on that I was going to be a chiropractor.
Wow. Can you talk about the maturation at that early stage in life of becoming a chiropractor and caring for others at the age of 22? Some of the challenges that you internally had to work out within yourself to really develop into a chiropractor that's delivering adjustments at 22 years old. I'm just curious if you could reflect back to just that process, that experience.
Well, I never had a full time job before. I would just went right through. I had a couple of part time jobs, but I never really had a full time job. So I really didn't have a conscience. And I grew up at a middle class. I never had a consciousness of being successful. But I did want to open my own business. I wanted to open my own practice. And at the time, we took like part one and part two while we were in school. And then every state had a part three, part four. And I wanted to go to New York, because a lot of my family was in New York. But I failed one of the parts of one of the two parts. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's six parts, whatever. I failed this
Mm-hmm.
one part, and I went to a seminar, a DE seminar in New York. They happened to have one there, and I was living in New Jersey, and I ran into Jim Sigafu, so I had known, because I had been going to DE the whole time I was a student. And he asked me what I was doing. And while I was gone, my parents got divorced. So I said, my mother's couch and my father's couch at this point. And I just found out I failed that part, and I'd have to wait 6 months. So, and I was a great student. I had no trouble going through school. So, like, it's sort of like one of those, you make plans and God laughs. It was my first, I was knocked on my ass, and I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? And he offered me this job, because he had this practice that he had sold, and it came back to him, and he was going to go in and build it up with one of his daughters. And he's like, hey, come help us.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I worked with him for 8 months, and it was the most incredible experience. I learned how to think like a successful person. I learned how all the how tos of running a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I also learned that, because I was 22 and I barely looked 22, and most of my patients were older than me, which now almost all my patients are younger than me, ironically. But I learned that you had to speak with authority. And I did. And so I guess I went from being a kid to being a doctor, and held that kind of authority. And I remember maybe 20 years after that, somebody came, one of my CAs, who was able to talk to me, and she said, you really look like a doctor now. You can tone it down a bit. But that's how I did it. I was
Mhm.
able to see myself successful and act as if I was successful, even though I wasn't. So basically, I went into a practice that was only seeing about 30 patients a day at that
Mhm.
time. And by the time I left 8 months later, it was up near 100 patients a day.
Mhm. Mhm.
So one of the things I talk to students about a lot, and I talk to a lot of students, is that if you're going to work in an office, that you should work in an office that practices just the way you do. Because I had this vision, I wanted to see 100 patients a day. That was my vision in school. That I wanted to reach everyone with this chiropractic message, and the more families that I can get into chiropractic, the more of a blessing I would be to the world. You know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so I guess it's idealistic, but I still feel that way. Anyway,
Mhm.
I um I worked with him for 8 months. At the end of 8 months, he was seeing about 100 patients a day. Yeah, you know how long it took me. So then I left. He went back to Florida. I went to the Poconos, which was about
Mhm.
3 hours from where I'd worked with him, and I started a practice because I had gotten a Pennsylvania license in the process because he practiced in Pennsylvania. So I went to the other side of Pennsylvania, near to where I grew up. And anyway, how many months? Three, three
3 months
months.
to get to 100 a day.
3 months to get to 100 because that's all I knew how to do. I,
Mhm.
I I got on the radio shows. I did an open house with a country band, served chicken, all the things he did, because he continued to be my mentor after I left. And
Mm.
I just did what he said. And why reinvent the wheel? I know this is great for students to hear because, or chiropractic students anyway, like when I got out of school, man, I thought I knew everything because I was 22, right? And and I remember looking at his forms and going, oh, this is, I don't like his new patient forms. I don't like this. I don't like that. And then the first day in practice, I had 9 patients and I did exactly what he did. I don't even know if I whited out his name on the top of my new patient form, and I still do. I still do. So, like a lot of times, chiropractic students, will go work for chiropractors because it's better money or it's a place they want to be. But my advice is go work with somebody that practices just the way you want to practice. Why reinvent the wheel?
Mhm. How would you recommend that people identify the types of practices that are out there that would resonate with them? Do they have to do some internal work to really get clear on which path they're taking already and get clear on what skills they have and the type of practice? Like there's obviously an inner process of visualizing and crystallizing that vision of how you want to practice and who you want to take care of, and then you have to actually go and do research to find those practices that are out there that are open to receiving you. No.
Well, I would suggest that, and even and I know this is for prospective students. As I was watching here, I would go visit chiropractors and see how they practice. And then when you get to chiropractic school, or go to chiropractic seminars, and as you explore, see who and what resonates with you. That I think that's the best way. I mean, and there's lots of different philosophies in chiropractic, and you're gonna find what fits for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about fit. I mean, when I got out of chiropractic school, I'm out 38 years. It was like you were straight or a mixer, or you did this or you did that. You know, it really, it's not like somebody's right and somebody's wrong. And I often, when I speak, say this because it's not like, if you want to practice different than I practice, that I don't know that you're ruining chiropractic. You're gonna attract a different kind of person that I'm gonna attract. But there's room for everybody because there's so many people out there that are, have a spine and are alive, and
Mm-hmm.
those are the qualifications of getting adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
So, you'll find out who the winners are in your mind, and then hang with the winners.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Talk about just or reflect back on these. You said 38 years. What's it been like to be a chiropractor for 38 years, on your body, on your mind, at the soul level? How has it been? How would you describe the experience?
I have had a life of purpose. I feel like if tomorrow a lightning bolt would come and take me, I'm like right at the head of the line in heaven, if there's such a thing, you know.
Hmm.
I just feel like I've been used, that I have used my skill, that I've been able to change so many lives. I haven't always practiced full time, but I have been practicing full time the last 5 years. I've always had practices, but I ran them and trained, and I would jump in and you know get a practice built up and put another associate, that kind of stuff. But I've been practicing, and I could tell you. It's funny because I just spoke last weekend. I could tell you 5 stories that are totally excite me of changes that are happening in patients in my practice. 38 years later, I am more excited to be a chiropractor than the day I got out of school.
Hmm.
Now it has had cycles. Like, because I like back to my story. I was like 100 patients a day, 100 patients a day. Well, what happens when now I'm 23 and I'm seeing 100 patients a day? Like, now what do I do with my life? I almost thought of it as like Michael Jackson syndrome. It's like, oh, now what? I got that. And I never really thought past. I used to sit in the back of the room and doodle what my office was going to look like. And, I just was so driven to do that, that once I did that, I didn't quite know what to do.
Hmm.
And I'm just talking in terms of numbers because that's how I would think, more so than now. But at the end of a year, my practice was as big as I wanted it to be, and then I'm like, well, now what do I do?
Hmm.
And I remember 3 months into practice, I netted $17,000. I didn't even know it, like I never made that in a year. I never, so I actually started buying buildings. I started playing Monopoly, and I ended up with 4 offices in 4 years. So by the time I was uh, in practice for about, I wasn't even 30 yet. I had 4 offices, and then I learned that there's a lot more to having offices than being a great chiropractor. I mean, I admittedly I'm a great chiropractor, but just because I put that same little floor plan and bought a freestanding building, 1,200 square feet with 10 parking, just because I did the same thing over and over again, didn't mean that I motivated other people that I hired to do that.
Hmm.
So that's when the learning, that's the learning curve for me. I think I was always natural as a chiropractor. As a business person, I definitely had to develop. And that's a huge learning curve, having 4 offices in 4 years. And then I went ahead and a year later got married. And then I had 4 kids in the next 4 years.
Hmm.
So that's when I learned how to play chess. So I started out in Monopoly. I moved to chess because what I learned is that I had a paper calendar, and I still do. I still do. And I would say, okay, what can I do better than everyone else, and what can I hire people to do? In other words, if I could hire someone to clean my house, and that's not my thing, and that's on my pay grade, then there's nothing wrong with that. If I hire a nanny that would make sure the kids get to school on time, that's not a bad thing. What is it that's important? Do I need to go to the games? Yeah, I need to go, and so I totally played out my life like that. And so
Hmm.
there's delegating, and this is what I learned from 4 offices in 4 years, and there's accountability. And then there has to be motivation. You have to put the right person in the right seat. And then you have to see them even greater than they see themselves, so you can bring out the best in them.
Hmm.
And there has to be something, especially when it comes to chiropractors, there has to be something there that they need to get, or else they won't stay in relationship with you. Just like when Sigafus left the practice, I left the practice too. I got what I needed from that experience, and I moved on. So I think the big challenge in running multiple offices is keeping people, keeping
Hmm.
chiropractors there, because if you're going to teach them to be great, then they're going to want to be great somewhere else. So then
Hmm.
I ended up selling practices as I would build them, and then have the doctor be there, and their commitment was to be there for a certain amount of years, and then I would sell it to them at a great discount. And that's sort of how I rolled for about 25 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it
Wow.
wasn't, and that gave me the freedom to open offices, which actually is what I'm really good at, is building a practice,
Hmm.
because there are physical, I get the physical limitations, and then I'm not happy to stay still very often.
Hmm. So yeah, this is a perfect segue. If we're creating a culture of pre-chiropractic students and we're encouraging them to start their own pre-chiropractic club, just as they're going to one day start their own chiropractic practice or enter into a practice, if they're entering into our model of a pre-chiro club, or like, how do you usher new, fresh energy into a space, into a culture that you've already built? Or how do you build a culture so that when people come into it, they're able to thrive, they're able to find their place and position and make efforts that are congruent with like their strengths, but also be encouraged to go beyond their limitations of what they think is possible? Because I'm going to just say it, like, pre-chiropractic doesn't really have a presence on these campuses, so the students are the ones that we really need to lead to greatness, to really help encourage them after they've learned chiropractic, after they've been to the offices and experienced chiropractic, after they've maybe even practiced some skills that are relevant to being a chiropractor, like thinking like a chiropractor, or just getting comfortable using your hands, or communication. Now they're starting their own club, or now they're starting their own practice on their college campus in an area that's completely unfamiliar with their information that they're going to be providing, that the message of chiropractic. How do we structure that, just based on your experience?
I'm not quite clear what you're asking. Are you talking about an
I'm trying
undergrad
to build.
student bringing it onto the campus that they go, the college they go to? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm trying to build a parallel between how much experience you have starting practices and building them over 25 years, by identifying, okay, this person is really great at that and this person is really great at that, and delegating responsibilities and then holding people accountable to those responsibilities. Like, how does that actually play out? I guess if you want to just apply it based on your own experience with the context that you have experience in, which is chiropractic practices and people that you're placing in different roles, and how you lovingly hold them accountable, that's fine. We could keep it there. But I was trying to expand the context to, we're here today in 2022 inspiring students earlier on in their path, and so giving them opportunities to really see what they're made out of at 22, at 21, at 20 years old, to start their own practice on their campus. Like, what does that look like, or how can that develop and expand?
I'm just clarify this. Are on their campus of undergrad or on their campus at the chiropractic college?
It will obviously transfer over to them getting involved with already existing clubs on their chiropractic campus, or starting their own club on their chiropractic campus. Let me just close this window. But no, I'm actually encouraging earlier on in the process to start their own pre-chiro clubs.
It's it. I've done that. My practice was near East Stroudsburg University, which is a state university, and we had a chiropractic club on campus. And it takes having a student that's willing to be mentored and has the potential, and then you have to continue to mentor them, but they need to do the work. They need to get the campus approved, the club approved, and then just like in chiropractic, because I live right near Life University, the problem with any club is sustainability. Because then, that's what happened to this club. There was about a dozen students, and then they all ended up in chiropractic school, and nobody was still there to run the club.
Hmm.
So that happens at life with a technique or philosophy club. Usually it ends up being a group of students that are all friends with each other, and they're all around the same corner. So
Hmm.
that's the whole thing, is that you teach them that they have to replace themselves, just like we teach chiropractors that they've got to fill the seats in chiropractic colleges. You
Hmm.
teach the students, and anything that they learn. And again, I talk to mostly chiropractic students. Anything you learn, these skills that you learn being a student, don't go away when you graduate. Those are the skills, the leadership skills you'll need to be successful in practice. Just like when Sigafus taught me to see 100 patients a day, when I moved and it was my own building, I didn't forget how to see 100 patients a day. You say, oh, well, you built a practice, and admittedly, I didn't get paid very much, but what I got was a lot more valuable, because I became the person that could build a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, and I saw like my friends in chiropractic school that were the head of clubs and heads of technique and national organizations or what internet, those are the same people that ended up running those national organizations. They became those leaders, and partially because they saw themselves as those leaders, but also because they were able to be mentored. Like, I'm the president of the League of Chiropractic Women. Over COVID, our life chapter kind of went into a lull. The kids graduated. There weren't other people on campus to carry it out. So I just got a group of students together and we went out to eat. Or I think they came to my house the first time. And so they isolated who wanted to be the president, who wanted to be in charge of social media, but they had me. Now, once they got off the ground, they just kind of wave at me once in a while, let me know what's going on. But if they, I'll make sure that they bring on younger people so that it can continue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just staying with them, staying connected to the students so that when new challenges arise or when new needs are brought to the surface, you're able to be there to help them navigate that and help
And you
clear.
can't micromanage them. They don't, they don't want to be micromanaged at all. They just want the ball and then they can run with it. Just
Mm-hmm.
also started a New Beginnings Club at Life University, and we had about 18 students, go from Atlanta to New Jersey a couple weeks ago for a New Beginning seminar. What it takes, though, is you got to find these kids that I'll call them kids that have that fire in their belly, that want to make a difference, and they're there. They are so there, but they need you to cheer them on. I see myself and in my role as a chiropractor, as a cheerleader. I'm a cheerleader for my patients until sometimes I say my job is to tap dance long enough so that NA can heal them so they get well. And then my CAs, and then when I have associates, I don't have any associates right now, or these club people, or my board of the LCW, brilliant people that we're involved with that don't always see themselves brilliant. So
Mm-hmm.
if nothing else, in our lives, if we can become great cheerleaders, how about my kids? And now I have grandsons, 3 grandsons.
Mm.
I'm just the bleacher sitter. I'm the bleacher sitter in life.
Wow.
Because for me to convert a family to lifetime care is pretty cool. When I get a patient in and then they bring their wife or husband and then the kids and the grand, that's pretty cool. But I'll tell you what, you get an associate that can do that can turn one patient into 5, change all those lives. That's what excites me. I've sent over 100 students to chiropractic school. That excites to watch their successes. I had one of my earliest associates just retired, and financially he could have retired many years ago, but he decided to retire. And I called him up. I'm like, get off your butt, work with students, do something, make a difference. Because I feel like if we don't, then we die. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, this is what turns me on. This is my passion. This is the fire inside of me. I'm always looking for bigger and better ways to serve.
Mm-hmm.
We all are. We all want to make a difference in life.
Mm-hmm. No, we have a profession full of people that if they were given the opportunity, they would show up. They would be there if they were asked to be there. And we just don't I don't think we offer enough opportunities to the chiropractic students to step up and be involved, be more involved as students and be shown that they're valuable and be shown that they have much more that they're capable of than they think they do. And also I'm adding pre-chiropractic students to that list now because I think that typically if the students don't come from your office, from a chiropractor's office, then they're coming from an admissions campaign, like an admissions department has an agenda, which is to go out to these campuses and speak on behalf of one school. And so we have students coming from all different places to go to this school, but do they have any shared experiences? Is there any culture that they've been brought into before they get to the school so that they have mutual respect that no matter which chiropractic school they go to, they know that the fellow incoming class has studied the philosophy, has studied the art, is well aware of why they're going to chiropractic school and what chiropractic is and what it isn't. Like there's not a lot of structure in place. So that's kind of what these conversations are doing, is allowing us to expose people such as yourself who have decades of experience and also a passion that we could feel through the speaker for chiropractic. Hear that early, like right when you're learning about chiropractic, of like, this is what's possible. My goodness, wow, I can make this impact. I can help families in my community. Like, wow. So I hear you. I'm right there with you. I'm just trying to keep asking new questions, I guess, that allows you, maybe, who's someone who's like done it. You've had the pre-Chiro club. You've attracted more than 100 people. I remember hearing Reggie Gold say that he attracted like 150 people to school, and I was like, I've been working on this project for like 10 years, since I was a second quarter student, and I'm from upstate New York, Hudson Valley. I chose a school in Portland, Oregon, because the climate there was more like similar to what I appreciated, and I went and visited Life University. I went and visited Life West, and I ended up going to a school in Portland, which is not a chiropractic school, and transferring after like having obviously been exposed to going to the Life University homecoming weekend and gone to the Life West tour, transfer and see how different the experiences were amongst the students and how different the access to resources were. So anyway, just letting you know what my path is, and sharing with you a little bit about why I'm so driven to expose you to the younger crowds, and also trying to bring a new energy to this. Can we kind of shift to League of Chiropractic Women? What's the intention behind that movement? And
I got 16 thoughts from the last conversation. Okay, shift.
or no. By all means,
I was just
respond to what I
my
just said.
okay. Let me before I love talking about LCW, but let me just talk for a second about the tap on the shoulder. I think that a lot of chiropractors or even perspective, they're waiting for somebody to nominate them to volunteer. And that's not how volunteering works very often. I mean, you can have leaders that empower other people, but also, if you're sitting around waiting for somebody to say, "Hey, can you help?" A lot of us are just self-identified. And as far as the range of philosophy, I think that we need more chiropractors talking about the philosophy as we know it, to get other chiropractors to be more in line with the philosophy. Because if let's say you want to go to chiropractic school and your chiropractor that you're going to is more like a physical therapist than like a chiropractor, they're going to send you to a school that's more of a physical therapy school than a chiropractic school. So how do you override that? I think that people do what other people do. And as a philosopher or as a motivator, whatever you want to call me in the chiropractic profession, I've been on the stage for decades. I get frustrated too, but I also get frustrated. I still do, I call it a better results workshop in my office instead of a new patient orientation, because it's a little bit more attractive. But you know thousands of Wednesday nights I stand up there, and sometimes there's a frustration, like, why doesn't everybody get this already? Like, I mean, I've just seen, generations of people live an incredible quality or better quantity of life because of regular chiropractic care. How come everyone doesn't get it? That's a whole question in itself, I think. And that leads into why do most chiropractic schools lead more towards what they call evidence-based, or allopathic, rather than teaching chiropractic. I don't know. And I can't even, you know what, I'm 60 now. I have no more time to think about that. I just got to get good at what I do and
Mm-hmm.
better at what I do, and
Mm-hmm.
change who I am so that I'm more capable to keep on delivering this message to anyone and anywhere I go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you want to talk about LCW, or do you have a question about what I just said?
Yeah, no, I mean, what you just said right there, I think how you override it, I'm just going to present my solution, is that you create a culture that this is the standard, right? The MCAT is the shiny object. Right now, like if you look at one of the social media posts that I've done in the, like, I don't really use social media too much. I need to change that relationship, or just like you said, delegate somebody to that. Which I got 2 interns recently. I'm excited about them bringing more of this type of content to social media. But pre-med hashtag, you know what a hashtag is?
Mhm.
There's like over 950,000 hashtag pre-med posts that have gone out. There's about 150 for pre-Chiro. So that's a huge opportunity to represent the profession. It's not as though these evidence-based schools have created a culture where they're saying this is chiropractic. So there's an opportunity there to really represent the vitalistic schools, or represent the chiropractic schools, shall we just call them, in a way that this is chiropractic. So I've been having conversations. I'm building a pitch deck right now to raise money to create commercials, high level commercials for the community college student, the high school student, the 4 year athlete, the massage therapist who's looking for that next step, or that path of purpose that you talk about. When you look back, you said, I've been living a life of purpose. And I think that that's what people are hungry for more than ever. And this is that. I mean, this is what I experience it to be, is a life of purpose. So that's what I believe is possible. You've brought over 100 students to the school. What if through this interview people heard you, and now there's 100,000 new chiropractors that come out in the next 5-10 years that think like a chiropractor, or that practice like a chiropractor? That's, I think, the potential, right? I've had many people on this podcast that are like, we're opening a school in Scotland, or we're opening a school in Egypt, or we're opening a school in Australia, all in the name of trying to bring chiropractic to the people. But like, how do they properly contextualize this professional pathway if there's no pre-chiropractic education? That's like, you got to have these experiences. You have to have these exposures. You have to at least kind of have been primed to know why you're even going to chiropractic school. You know what I'm saying, is like that continuity of you working with a family for 20 years and taking care of them and their kids and their grandkids. It's like you get to see that beautiful potential. Like, I've been in practice 10 years. I have people that have been practice members for 10 years, and just to see how that relationship develops and how they're able to share this with their friends, with their family, like, that's what's possible. I always talk about with people that I've been taking care of for a long time, is like, the real gift is to be in the same place, to be rooted down in the same town or city, is that you get to see that chain link of people. It's like, I just met somebody who met somebody through this person, this person, this person. It all traces back to you. Do you realize that? The potential that you have to like share. Anyway, getting off on a tangent. Talk about the League of Chiropractic Women. Like, why is it so important to really create structure to support chiropractic women, or to provide a platform so that they could share voices? What's the function?
Well, when I went to chiropractic school, I don't think 20% of the chiropractic students were female. Uh, that's why I went. No, I'm just kidding. It was really a male profession. The women that went, were looking to be the wife of a chiropractor, or whatever. And now it's over 50%. But on the stages of the chiropractic seminars, to the boards of trustees. I was fortunate enough to serve on the board of trustees of Life University for 14 years. We're always the minority, and men mentor men, and think like a man. That's why they're men. And women think like a woman. And there hasn't been enough yin to the yang, so to speak. Governance is a lot different when there's women present. I'm not trying to say that it's the men's fault that there's not women. It's the women's fault. They were waiting for, get up there. And that's what we do. We do the get up there. The current president of the International Chiropractic Association is our treasurer. Um, First woman in that position. Many of our women have gone on to being on board of trustees or on national, NBC, different. It's not okay to overlook us anymore. Actually, on Thursday, I'm going to be a part of an assembly of speaking at Assembly of Life University of a half a dozen women that they've asked leaders. Um, I can't tell you how many times I've spoke to in chiropractic college, not as much lately, but they'll be like, "You're the first woman chiropractor I've ever heard speak." Or I remember going to the Bay Area to speak at a pretty well-known philosophy seminar, and this was about 10 years ago, and they said, "You're the first woman." And so, like me and Jeannie Ohm and, Sean Powers, there's a few of us that have been out there for years, but it's time that, and part of the reason we were out there is because if you look at my numbers, my success, any man would want that, and would want to create that. So I was almost like a woman that was following the man's lead. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that sounds good to us. But what about a woman who, sees a few patients a day in a spare room at her house because she's home breastfeeding and homeschooling her kids? We want to have that be a model. Or how about 3 or 4 women that decide to practice together so that when they take their maternity leaves, they actually time when they're going to get pregnant so that they can support each other. Mm-hmm. There's so much to be done, and it will be done because it's time. And so 10 years ago, we called about 20 women, and 14 of them showed up, and we went to Chateau Elan in Georgia here, a spa with a winery, and we sat down and we just said, what if? And most of us had been in practice, and we were the top women in the profession anyway. So when we all got together and created this organization, from the name to the logo to the committees and all that, then we hit the profession, and they were like, oh, you guys have always been here, because we had always been here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that was our beginnings 10 years ago, and we've had clubs on many campuses, and so our in our vision, and we empower women in a vitalistic chiropractic, so drug-free, and 10 years ago that was a big issue, subluxation focused. Those are our, so you say subluxation focused, that's a pretty wide range, but we're subluxation focused and drug-free.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, just like what's the I guess intention behind like a woman or a student who's a man or a woman? No, it's only for women. It's exclusive, right?
Well, we allow men to join as auxiliary members to support us financially and like that. And on many of the college campuses, you have to allow men, to be a campus organization. So many of them do allow men in, and we don't, discourage men, but our main thrust is just to support women. So we did like a lot of, seminars and different events, and we found that it's very hard to get women on an airplane, even pre-COVID, because, they have a lot of balls in the air. So a lot of what we end up doing is like really vacationing together, so to speak. And, like we have a retreat every year in Scottsdale. And now this year we went to Clearwater, right on the beach in March, and did a lot of yoga and stuff outside and stuff inside. So that's what we found women are to fellowship of women. And a lot of the women on our board, being leaders in the profession, were already living in a male world. Many of us didn't have a lot of women friends, because we lived in that male world. So we've actually learned how to be girlfriends out of that. And
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so just looking forward, where do you see the League of Chiropractic Women serving like students at multiple schools that find out about the League of Chiropractic Women, they want to get involved? I guess like where's the resources, or where can they reach out to you or to the League of Chiropractic Women to find out more information, or just to get connected to that community?
Yeah, because we also do a lot of stuff virtually. Even, and at one point before COVID, we were very popular. We had a whole division in Europe, because I've spoke all over the world, in Israel and all over. And very few chiropractors that are women are outside of the United States because, like in a country like Israel, for example, they don't want to leave the country to get educated, but there's no chiropractic college in Israel. So I went to lunch with 7 women. There were 7 women chiropractors, and they didn't even know each other.
Mhm.
And that there's only 7 in the country,
Mm.
and 100 chiropractors. So anyway, we have a website, lcwomen.com, and you could find out more. And like what I started saying is, we do twice a month. We do virtual meetings,
Mm.
and we have speakers and all that. We have all that other support available. We also have accountability groups. A lot of our women speak once a week and talk about their goal. Anything that like, there's so much room to create, to fill the need, and needs changed. And
Mhm.
personally, my website, my email is drsharongorman@yahoo.com. I'm currently the president. That's Dr. with no period, Dr. Sharon Gorman, at Yahoo. I was the president the first 4 years, and then I wasn't president the next 4 years. And since COVID, for the last 2 years, I've been president again. And we're definitely thriving.
Awesome, awesome. And I just want to be honoring of your time. Is there like anything specific that's really calling you these days that you're really passionate and excited about, that you're working on or that you're involved with? Obviously, you've got a great family, so that takes a lot of energy, and you're back in practice. I'm just curious if there's any other projects that you're involved with or any other things that you think that is relevant to highlight, and make awareness about, as far as just what's in your psyche these days.
Well, one of the things that has definitely aided in my success and my continued excitement is to be in a tribe. I think that the chiropractors that get in a tribe, be it through a coaching program or New Beginnings has been my main one, and programs affiliated with Life University over the years, where like 3 times a year we get together, and we're of like mind. I always say, we spend our whole lives with civilians, people that don't necessarily get us. And it's great to go home and be with people that get you. So I am very involved with New Beginnings. And I just, as of New Beginnings a few weeks ago, decided, well, I actually rolled out a coaching program. I've coached in the past, and my practice is pretty awesome. And I'm seeing about as many patients as I physically want to see. So I was trying to decide if I wanted to go back into opening more practices or coaching. And I've coached in the past, so I am coaching chiropractors right now. I
Okay.
just started.
Can you talk about the structure of the relationship, of the mentorship or of the coaching relationship, between a chiropractic student and you, or a chiropractor and you? What are the things that come up in that relationship, or how is it really useful to help people grow and develop?
Well, I should preface this by saying I never stopped coaching chiropractors. I never stopped mentoring students. I just decided that I want to create some exchange there again, so that that is sustainable. And eventually, in 10 years or so, that might be you know, my main thing. Um, I don't know if too much that is more important than finding a mentor. Like Sigafus was my mentor. He ended up becoming a coach, but he was my mentor. My uncle that got me into chiropractic, that gave me the first adjustment in the hospital, he was my mentor. When I was working on growing my practice, I would go visit chiropractors' practices that were bigger than mine, and that would help me. I think that overall, chiropractors that are successful are the ones actually that want to give back. They're looking for that next level of citizenship, so to speak. They
Mhm.
want to give back. They often don't know how to give back, but they want to give back. And I think that when people went to chiropractic school because a chiropractor saved their life, like in my case, that became their mentor. But I know I'm in driving. I'm pretty close to Life University. I'm about a half-hour drive from Life University. I take care of a lot of students, and a lot of them have never even been adjusted before, like
Mm.
are clueless.
Mm.
Like you talk about, they just their advisor at school said that's a good career. And I've had students that international students. I keep thinking of this one guy who practices locally, but he was in school for a few years, and he came to my office with a friend. He had never been in a chiropractic office other than at the college. So, and these are our next chiropractors, you know, that don't have that experience. I very often have chiropractic students come to my office to hear my lay lecture. And I have videos I show patients too. I don't sell them, but I, you know, so they come and they watch the videos. Find chiropractors that are looking to give back. If chiropractors are doing screenings, you know, go help them.
Hmm.
Get engaged with them.
Hmm.
But again, it's another thing where they're not going to tap you on the shoulder, and it's that, and you know, it's that top 5% or 10% that are going to find what they need. If you know what you need. But if you're going to get into the profession, maybe you should go visit all kinds of offices so you can see what you don't need. And I know you said you went to chiropractic college that wasn't very chiropractic, but you did have a chance. You know, I know Life Lesson Sherman for sure have these weekends. I'm involved with the one at go check it out.
Hmm.
Be, you know, like, don't be passive in all this.
Hmm.
And again, you know, and those are the students that I find that, you know, that want to be cultivated. They want to be leaders.
Hmm. Yeah, you say 10% is the amount of people that are getting exposure and really immersed and engaged. And I think that we need to up that to like 80 to 90 to 95 to maybe 98.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe social media is the key, you know, because again, I've been standing in front of you know, a room full of patients every week for 38 years. Or maybe it's the old 100th monkey. I'm sure you've heard that story.
Mm, what refresh my memory?
Well, I can't refresh it too well, but it's a story about monkeys that started washing their potatoes, and one did, and then others started following it. You know, like whatever they're eating, they're washing it, and then obviously I've never told the story from the stage, and then they found when a certain number of monkeys were washing their potatoes, they found on other islands that other monkeys started washing potatoes. It almost like, you know, like the energy changed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that most chiropractors don't, I mean, this is a whole long conversation, but don't practice chiropractic, let's say, like I do, because there's too many other insurance codes to bill. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's too many people that they're giving people what they want rather than what we know chiropractic is. So if you come into me and you have a pain and I say, okay, here's what we're going to do to get rid of your pain, then I kind of socially fit into the model that you think I should fit into.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have a different model and you come in and you have a pain and my intention is to get you under lifetime care with your kids, I have to be a good communicator, or I have to be good at connecting with people and being the kind of person they would trust. It's like I say, you know, your mom didn't give you an orange aspirin the first time you had a fever when you were a kid because she didn't love you. She gave it to you because she did love you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going against that. Not that we're against anything, but the vitalistic principle is so much different than the medical model that we have to be strong and stand up. That's why I go to things like New Beginnings, so that I could stand up in the patient's face and say, well, this is what chiropractic is.
Mm-hmm.
It might be for you, it might not be for you. I wish I had a nickel for every person that came to my orientation and stopped coming when they were out of pain, but it doesn't stop me from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it does stop most chiropractors from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person called and said, I would like to get my family adjusted for the rest of our lives to stay well, I think most chiropractors would most would go, yoo-hoo, you know, that's awesome. But they don't know how to create those patients.
Mm-hmm.
And so they stay in they give people what people think they want instead of sharing what we think they need. It's like the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
So you know, because that's the other concept in changing the world is, how could we get out to the people and have them demand chiropractic. And that, that might be how it has to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've watched the shift in chiropractic. Like when I got out of chiropractic school, everybody was doing passive physical therapy, diatherm. They were putting people on machines, and that's not, and that's not what it looks like anymore. A chiropractor is outside of the realm of subluxation removal only. What they're doing is more like rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And that's changed. Not That's changed because the concept in the community, in the world, has changed. You see how? So they changed chiropractic. Maybe that's how it have to go around. I don't know. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying my damnedest the other way around, and sharing chiropractic. I always say, I could always tell when somebody's ready to hear the chiropractic message because they're close enough to hear me. Because that's what I talk about. If I have one song, that's what I'd be singing. If I was a bird, that's what I'd be singing, because that's my reason to be. That's my raison d'etre. That's what turns me on. And if the students that are listening here today would realize that they have that opportunity to catch that fire, that they can make that much of a difference in people's lives, I think our schools would be packed.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
there's such fear, and we learned that through COVID. People are operate out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of chiropractors got afraid too, and a lot of them closed up. But a lot of them, our practices are bigger than ever
Mm-hmm.
because we became more attractive. You see, when you love something like I love chiropractic, that makes me very attractive to people
Mm-hmm.
because of that excitement, because I'm alive. I mean, that's our product, right? That's what we're
Mm-hmm.
selling. We're selling life. We're selling aliveness. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're like that, like I always said, when you're on fire, they come watch you burn. That excitement, that life, that reason to be.
Mm-hmm.
How do we share that with other people? I think we demonstrate it, and that's why I think so many chiropractors have turned so many students onto chiropractic school, because I've had people. I always think about this guy who was going to go be a physical therapist until he became a patient. He stood at my front desk one day and waited for me to have a break, and I came out, and I said, "What's up?" And he said, "I want your job. I want your
Mm-hmm.
job." Not because I told him he should switch colleges or any other reason, but because he saw how much I love what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, a woman came into my practice, and she's she didn't come in to like observe me, but she came in. She was planning to go to physical therapy school next year. She's in like a post back program. She didn't get in the first try, and actually, it's not even that she didn't get in. She just is doing a post back program for whatever reason, I guess for requirement's sake. And yeah, just after her having a 30-minute conversation and getting adjusted, she had been to two chiropractors in the past, and she said, this entire experience is so different from my other two chiropractic experiences. And that weekend she applied to Life West, and she's going to Life West in like three
Great
months.
school.
But the question becomes is like, okay, between that decision that you're going to become a chiropractor, you got that life turned on and you got that potential in your mind, to the day that you set foot on campus on the first day of school, what does that time get filled with, and how can we really leverage that time? Because as you know, working with students and even chiropractors, it gets even more challenging. Time management, the amount of time available is the best when you're in high school or college. You have more time then than you'll have when you're in chiropractic school or practicing as a chiropractor. Just as far as like life stuff, right? Things happen, but I continue to ask that question, is like, how can we cultivate that inner fire that you just described? How can we demonstrate over and over and over and over and over again, so that these students can observe over and over and over again what chiropractic is, and how it can be a tool to turn yourself into this instrument for change, to serve life at such a greater capacity than you thought was ever possible as a teenager or as a massage therapist or whoever you are and wherever direction you're coming from, it's like, this is chiropractic? Like, this is not what I thought chiropractic was. And, like you said, social media, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that need to be liked is what you keep describing, is like the need to be liked is what keeps people from telling the truth or stepping out front
Or they're
and
not anchored
representing.
enough. They don't believe it enough themselves. You can't give what you don't have.
Mm.
I think it can come. It comes from that very often, and then at the majority, like even in chiropractic school, and I don't care what school you went to. Even when I went to school, and they said, "How many have never been adjusted?" And at least a quarter of the hands went up, all the way back then. If you, my uncle used to tell me, if you hang out with the dogs, you can get fleas. The chiropractic, they got to choose to hang out with other people that have this principle, and they have to be the kind of personality that is willing to go possibly against the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
I know Life University has a program, they have where you can come spend a weekend as a student,
Mm-hmm.
and they have Life Force, which is the doctors that help at that program. And
Mm-hmm.
then they actually started a club on campus, and it's called the Life Force Club of the students. And the students actually go out and do recruiting events while they're students. They
Mm-hmm.
turn around and because I think that students, even though they might have more time, they have a certain amount of entitlement because they're paying tuition, and they're paying a lot of tuition, and they feel like, they don't owe anybody anything yet. And that's unfortunate, and they graduate and they think they're, God's gift to the world, which they should to a degree, but sometimes it's not very realistic. I think connection, staying connected with you, like if she stays connected with you. And I think a lot of people will send people to chiropractic school and they'll go, have fun, see ya. And then they kind of get into that, the common pool of outside in thinking instead of like us inside out thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I love that I love that you're posing the question, because if we stop asking the question, we'll never find the solution. And obviously, I don't have the solution, but maybe my kids will,
Mm-hmm.
or your kids will.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just another thought. I remember I wasn't in practice very long, and a medical doctor opened down the street, and he wanted to take me to lunch, and he said, your parking lot is always full. And he said, how do you get so many patients? And we started this conversation, and he said, well, when you're, and this might have changed. This was a long time ago, but he said, when you're a medical doctor, he says, it's just a matter of figuring out how to get into all the insurance plans, all the PPOs, especially when you're starting. And then they just come to you because, everybody thinks they need to go to the medical doctor on occasion. Some people live in a medical doctor's office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we get people to want to go to chiropractic? Because obviously the insurance companies or status quo is not as welcoming. And I thought about that for a while, and I thought, if chiropractic wasn't a challenge, I'd probably have picked another profession. If everyone went to a chiropractor, which is my dream, but if everyone went to a chiropractor and it was just status quo, then I wouldn't need to hold those orientations on Wednesday night because everybody would already know what I was talking about. I like that challenge. You could, just like COVID, you could let it bury you, or you could rise above it and use it as your light will shine so much brighter when all the other lights are out or lights are dull, and then you light other candles with you. That's who I am. I would, I would have been bored to death just being in a status quo profession. I love the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's like my reason to be. I want to turn today. I'm hoping to turn another family on to chiropractic.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Thank you so much for just sharing today. And yeah. Mm.